Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. As we look at the feast of the Passover, this was going to be a feast that they would continually observe throughout the history of Israel. And even though there was this first Passover in which the Lord would pass over them, the destroyer would not go in and destroy the firstborn of Israel, passing over them and only affecting the firstborn of Egypt. This was something that would happen over and over again. Every year they would be reminded of the time that the Lord redeemed them and made them his own people. And as they continue to observe this feast, there's basically two things that God said for them to keep as they kept this feast day in and day out, or every year. And that is, it was supposed to be done with unleavened bread. And then also, anyone who partook of the feast was to be circumcised. So circumcision and unleavened bread are two of the main things that they were to be very consistent about as they observed this Passover year after year. And as we look at the symbolism and how this is fulfilled spiritually through Jesus Christ, we can see how this really was a picture of both the internal condition of a Christian who accepts Christ as his Passover lamb, but also the exterior condition of a Christian who accepts Christ as his Passover. Circumcision is connected to the inward parts of a person when we're speaking about it in a spiritual way. And oftentimes we think of that as a New Testament idea. We go perhaps to Romans chapter 2 that talks about true circumcision is that of the heart. We could go to Colossians chapter 2 that talks about the circumcision of Christ that we have with him as we died with him and are raised with him. But we can even find that as an idea in the Old Testament. In Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 16, here this is Moses speaking to the people right before they go into the land of promise. He says, "So circumcise your heart and stiffen your neck no longer." And he'll mention that again later on in Deuteronomy, the idea of circumcision being that of the heart. Also in Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 4, Jeremiah talks about them removing the foreskins of their heart, being very graphic in the way that he describes the circumcision of the heart. But it is true. The circumcision, the true circumcision that the Lord was looking for was that of the heart. And we as Christians, as we take Christ as our Passover, we've got to accept the fact that if we want Christ to be our Passover lamb, and if we want to take in everything that comes along with that, we got to live a circumcised life. Not an outward circumcision, as Paul would emphasize in the book of Galatians and other places, but that circumcision that is within the heart, a cutting away of the flesh, a cutting away of our own desires and our own way of doing things, and just living a life wholeheartedly devoted to the Lord. And so we got to have circumcision of the heart, but we also have to have unleavened bread. Unleavened bread, again, as I mentioned before, symbolizes the outward things. In 1 Corinthians chapter 5, where we're told that Christ is our Passover, it says also there in verse 8, "Therefore let us celebrate the feast, not with old leaven or with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." So malice and wickedness, these things that we might do outwardly, are connected to leaven. Also in our reading today, it just so happens that we read about the time when Jesus told his disciples to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And there we have explained for us that he was talking about the teachings of the Pharisees. So you could combine that with 1 Corinthians chapter 5, and you see that leaven can symbolize false teaching, but it can also symbolize malice and wickedness. So these outward things that we could get involved in, we got to do away with so that we can serve the Lord in sincerity and truth. So if we want to keep the Lord as our Passover lamb and all the things connected to him, we've got to avoid those things, those outward things as well. So combined together, we find out that as we serve the Lord and as we enjoy him as our Passover lamb, the means by which the wrath of God will pass over us, it's also expected of us that these two things will be at place. We'll be circumcised in the heart, that is inwardly, we will be wholly devoted to the Lord, but then outwardly we will avoid malice, wickedness, false teaching, false ideas, false things that would come at us, And we just live a life wholeheartedly committed to Him in sincerity and truth. And if we do that, then we are ready to be the people of God, ready to celebrate the feast, that is, celebrate Christ as our Passover lamb, and to live a life more pleasing to Him. And so it's a two-sided thing. We can't just want Christ as our Passover lamb and then live in the uncircumcision of our heart and then go out and live in malice and wickedness. We've got to do our part as well. As we accept Him as our Passover lamb, we give our hearts to the Lord. Outwardly, we avoid certain things. And when we do that, we basically prove ourselves to be the people of God, as the Israelites were to do so many years ago. So let's try to do that today. Let's focus on that today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.